Hello, everyone, and I hope you are having a great Halloween. Of course, it is October 31st, 2018. I'm sitting here at home. I have to admit, for the last couple hours, of course, it's 9 p.m. Eastern Time, that I've sat here with the lights off and the curtains drawn, the blinds technically, um, because I didn't get any, just to be honest, I didn't get any Halloween candy. I hate to be like that, but that's just the fact. So that's what I've been doing. But as you can see now, I have light back on, although the blinds are still shut. Hello, Maureen and Jasmine and Cheryl and Kelly and the other Kelly and Susie and Joyce and Pamela and Angel. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. I wasn't sure if you even remember the last week's show. I really wasn't sure what I was going to do because it occurs to me that July 4th also fell on a Wednesday this year. Little did I know that July 4th and Halloween always fall on the same day. I just realized that, I guess, this year. And what's weird is my birthday also falls on the same day as July 4th and Halloween. So there's that. Laura, what's going on? It's finally Wednesday. Thank you, Laura. I can't tell you. It's very humbling. I can't even begin to explain to you how much it means that people actually look forward to these. When I know people look forward to the Friday and the new cases, of course, but the people I also look forward to me doing this live show. We're a little more laid back, I guess. I just can't tell you how humbling that is. I really, really cannot tell you that, and I enjoy doing it. Thank you. Jillian and Cindy, Kate, Penny, Heather, everybody, thanks for tuning in tonight. And Michelle, good to see you in here tonight. Kelly, no, I'm not a billboard tonight, although I am wearing, of course, an Unfound shirt. There you go. But I am not a billboard. I did not dress up or anything like that. Donna, how are you doing tonight? Good to see you. So, if you remember last week, I was thinking about, what was I going to do with Halloween? Then I figured out, you know what? I might as well just go at the regular time because no matter what I do, if I were to move it back to 10 or 11, that might get in the way of the Pacific Coast people. And if I do it earlier, well, that might get in the way, of Halloween because, it gets dark around 7 now. So I just said, you know what? Just going to do it at the regular time. And there you go. Hello, everyone. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. So happy Halloween to all of you. And I want to start off with a question. And this was a question that was just asked maybe 2 minutes before the show started. And it's a spectacular one. And it's fitting since today is Halloween. And it doesn't have anything to do with true crime. Is that it was, let me make sure I get this right. It was Emily, is Emmaleighh, who asked me, what's my favorite Halloween memory and my favorite Halloween candy? Well, I think that my favorite Halloween candy would be probably my favorite candy, period, I think. I have to admit, I think I'm pretty generic, and I think I'm just a basic, very average type of person, really. I just like a good Hershey bar with almonds. And I suppose if you had to put it in Halloween terms, like those little square chocolates, like you get the Crackle and the Hershey and the Mr. Good bar all mixed in, those little ones. That'd be a spectacular thing for me to get if I were to still going trick-or-treating. I think that would be good. But I'm not into the dark chocolate. The dark chocolate gets tossed out. It's too healthy. I can't do healthy candy. I mean, come on. So, Dan, what's going on? Good to see you. So I think that I would have to say my favorite Halloween candy, if I'm going trick-or-treating, would be those mixed bags. Like I said, Crackle, Mr. Good bar, the regular Hershey. Maybe they also have the Hershey with almonds. And then, of course, they put the dark chocolate. that would be my answer to that, Emily. If I think you're in here, right? I think I saw your name in here. So that would be my favorite candy for Halloween. And when I just like I go to 7-Eleven and I get a candy bar, it's usually Hershey with almonds, and I usually get the king size because I'm a pig. And I also like to get Reese's peanut butter cups, then put them in the freezer. Have you ever done that? Reese's peanut butter cup, put them in the freezer, let them get solid hard, and then eat them. Spectacular. Spectacular. And it's my good friend Shay from back in our Star Trek days that taught me that. And to this day, I deeply thank her. So there is popcorn ball. Really? Oh my. Okay, Donna likes I love the Hershey Kisses too, Donna. That too. That's good too. Milk Duds? I don't know. Whoppers? I don't know. Kelly's saying dark chocolate's the best. No, I can't do it. It's too bitter. Reese's peanut butter cups. Yes, yes, yes. Frozen are beyond amazing. See, Emily? Okay, you're in here who asked the question. Are beyond amazing. They are. And if you haven't, I'm telling you, you wouldn't think that the cold and them being frozen would make a difference. It does. If you think peanut butter cups are just good right off the shelf, freeze them. I'm telling you, it's spectacular. So, yeah, Michelle, you got to try that. And Kit Kats, and I like Kit Kats too. It's just not tops on the list. They're good too, and they could be good as a Halloween candy too. Twix. Heath bar crushed in ice cream. That's good too. A lot of good choices. But my favorite Halloween memory, and I'm going to try to keep this as PG as possible. I would have to say that's the one that probably comes to mind first. Is that 1996? I would have been 26 years old. I had a girlfriend at the time. Her name was Janie, Janie. And we went to a party that was thrown by a guy I knew from my drag racing days. And he was holding a party. And she went, can I say this? Yeah, I can say this. It's all fun. It was just fun. She went as a dominatrix, and I went as her sex slave. So there's that. So we went as that one year. So I had like the mask on, and there was like a leash and thing. I'm telling you, just for fun. All right, fun. Just for fun. Okay, just Halloween, just party. Just having a good time. But that's what. That's one that comes to mind, and I can also remember one where I dressed up as Speed Racer. So I had like the white helmet. Like he always wore the blue shirt with the white pants and stuff. I dressed up as Speed Racer because I was into cars at one time in my life. So those are a couple things that come to mind. I hope I didn't say too much there. Well, Shred. You asked, but once again, just fun. Just fun. I'm really 50 shades right there, Katrina. So see, I knew I was going to get that. But once again, just fun. Gonna keep saying that. But we came up with it. Yes, Cheryl. Yes, I'm not gonna read that out loud. Yes, Cheryl. Yeah. Marlene says you have all the good chocolate that I mentioned. Well, I hope all the kids went to your house, Marlene. I hope they did. So that was it was fun. 1996. She had like a like a leather costume and stuff. She was in black. I was in black, and there was a leash and everything. Yeah, I wouldn't say we went full like I wouldn't say we went full fiction like in that scene where they had the guy. Not like that, but. Kelly said, too funny. My face is red. Yeah, it's a bit, you asked, and I don't think that's too personal. Once again, totally, and I realize the kind of program that I do, you start saying, well, you dressed up as a sex slave, yada, yada. I'm telling you, it was just for fun. And she and I had a really good time with it. And of course, I don't know if they gave out prizes or anything. I don't remember that, but it certainly got everybody's attention. And Janie, although, she and I dated for probably close to a year, something like that. And she was, good time. We had a good time together. Janet, you're excused for being late. Totally fine. The look on your face when you keep saying just fun. Watch out there, Carla. That's funny. Okay. Katrina, I did not get any trick-or-treaters, probably because I made it look like nobody was home. Emily, good to see you. I know you were out trick-or-treating tonight. The other Emily, my assistant Emily, just got in here. Michelle says that those costumes would have been shocking in my hometown, but we are the Bible Belt here. Well, this was Western Pennsylvania, not exactly the Bible Belt. So it was a good time. Look out. I see Dee Dee in here. Okay. And Carrie, good to see all of you. So that was probably a, and then of course I have like a lot of elementary school memories of the costumes I dressed up there, but probably me and Janie dressing up probably is the number one image that comes to my mind first. So there you go. What do I have going on? So Emily, thank you for the questions. Good questions. I want to remind everybody, turn your clocks forward this weekend, right? Remember, spring up, fall back. So turn your, turn your clocks back. Yeah, turn your clocks back this weekend. Remember that. So we get an extra hour this coming weekend, so don't forget about that. And then I also wanted to mention the Lacey Gwenfill poll that was in the Unfound podcast discussion group. I think this is the closest poll we have ever had. I think there were like 3 choices that were running neck and neck and, right with each other. And then at the end, all the majority or the most people, the choice that got the most choices, picked the most, was that Terry McDowell went out into the woods in the Ocala forest, and with Lacey and did something to her. That ended up being the number one choice. But the 2 of the other choices, that somebody else did something or he was covering up for somebody, were very close. It was very close all week, since Saturday, I think, when I put the poll up until I took it down today. Very close. So that's interesting. Hopefully that bit of information can help Cindy as she proceeds to try to figure out what happened to Lacey. And of course, I want to continue to help her. Lots of trick-or-treaters. Carla says, beating the tornado watch. Wow. Emily says she's still trick-or-treating. You're trying to get the 3 kids, 5 and under car seat so he can eat. Okay. Kelly asked, did my mom make my costumes growing up? Yes and no. It depended. I had a real cool pirate costume one year that we kind of cobbled together from some things. But I wouldn't say she made them from scratch, no. I know other parents got into that. In fact, a guy that was in my class, went to high school with, his mother was into like paper mache costumes and things, so he had some cool things. But my mother wasn't quite into it like that. Hello, Lisa and Jamie and MJ. How's everybody doing tonight? Yeah, Michelle's birthday is today. That's right. I wished her a happy birthday. Carrie's saying Terry McDowell definitely did something in there. The why is the question. Agreed. And Pamela says, took me a while to find you. Sorry, Pamela. We're in here now, and we still got a long way to go. So the poll, everybody decided that Terry probably did something to Lacey. And once again, clocks fall, spring up, fall back. So you turn your clocks back this weekend. Don't forget that. All right. Got the shirt on. I want to mention the Unfound books. The Unfound books, the ebooks in particular, continue to do pretty decent on Amazon. If you haven't gotten one yet, or maybe you've just gotten the first one or the second one, you should check out 3 and 4. They're only $2.99. That's a pretty good deal, I think. And if you've bought them, I keep saying this, and I know it mentioned in the episodes. If you've bought some of the books, please go back into Amazon and give them some nice reviews. I would deeply appreciate that for everybody that has bought the books. That means a lot. I also want to mention the Patreon account. For those of you who are not Patreon members, and I know some of you in the show tonight are not, I have to say, and some of my readers who have access to the Patreon blog said the blog concerning Lacey Buenfield's disappearance is the best one they ever read. It was quite long. And for as little as $2 a month, you get access to the blog, and it's updated every Friday concerning the case that Unfound has that Friday. And the blog is available usually later in the day on Friday. It depends on what I have going on. But you get access to that for $2 a month, and you also get a free ebook that I will send you with a little message from me inside. For as little as $2 a month, that's a pretty good deal, I think. Of course, if you'd like to contribute $5 a month or $20 a month, then, of course, the benefits go up. But for $2 a month, that's a pretty good deal. But I think that people who are signed up, I think they get the most out of the blog. I think that they like to see me kind of theorize a little bit more than I ever do on the program, because I don't, once again, I say this every time this comes up. I don't like theorizing on the program because I think it makes people think a certain way, and I don't want that. I want you all to be free thinkers. So that's why I try to just present the facts in the interviews and in my summations afterwards. That's what I try to do. And then, because I start theorizing and then you're going to start thinking Ed knows something, or, I don't want that. I want you to all be free thinkers, and so that's why I don't say much. That's why I only do the theorizing on the private blog at patreon.com. You can go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, and you can sign up, and I'd deeply appreciate it. Same way with PayPal. PayPal people get some benefits as well, and you can go there. Susie says Patreon is fabulous, must do. So very good each time, Susie. Thank you very much. It's very good. Cherie says the blogs are just as interesting, if not more, than the interviews. Oh, come on now, Cherie. But okay, I promise you. Kelly, who is another contributor at Patreon, says, I love the blogs. Kelly, thank you. And Laura, hey there. Well, hey there to you, Laura. What's up? And Cherie says you will definitely learn something or think of something you haven't thought before by reading the blogs. Again, Cherie promises all of you. Thank you. I think what helps, and this is not to brag, but I have a lot of writing experience. So I think that helps. So it's not going to be one of these blogs where you're going to see misspellings and everything's going to be lowercase letters and it's going to be run-on sentences or anything like that. I absolutely have more writing experience than podcasting experience. So I try to use my writing skills in the blog, and it keeps my writing crisp. So I try to put my heart and soul into that, and I hope that shows when I do that. Anne says she always looks forward to reading the blog. Thank you. Angel says Cherie Biggs brown nosing again. Angel, that's true. And Carrie says get the blog, best $2 a month spent, hands down. There you go. So any of you, for example, are watching this recorded, you're on YouTube or on Facebook, you didn't catch it live. These are what some of the viewers are saying tonight, and I deeply appreciate it. Cherie says, gets me nothing. That's funny. Brown nosing. Okay. And then, of course, the playing cards. We have those right here at makeplayingcards.com. Of course, we have, see who we have here. Jennifer Wilkerson. I haven't talked to her mother lately. I have to see how she's doing. Shannon Turner. Her case will be in the next book, Volume 5, which I'm slowly working on. And, of course, Charlotte Paulus right here. So these make a good way to introduce people to true crime. Rosemary Grayhart. If you have like a card club that you do once a month, or poker, you have a poker club or something like that once a month, it's a good way to spread the word about these cases. And it's a good conversation item to talk about these people and keep these people in everybody's memory and put them into people's memories. It's a good way to do that. And I mentioned the books and, of course, the shirts at myshopify.com. Where do I want to start? Let me answer another question before I go on here. Who did ask me this? Let me look here real quick. Who asked me this question? I want to make sure I get it right. I was asked a question about a disappearance that I know was covered on Disappeared within the last couple seasons. Let's see if I can find out who asked me this question. I might have lost it. Okay. I can't find it. They asked me, what is my opinion on the disappearances of Danielle Imbo and Richard Patrone? Like I said, it was a Disappeared episode. If anybody's not familiar with it, they disappeared from the Philadelphia/New Jersey area. They went with friends to a restaurant. They were a new couple. And they left the restaurant, were never seen again. And the truck they were in was never seen again. I'll be honest, I'll be upfront. I don't have any information on this case any more than any of you do. Okay, I don't. It's a case I'd, of course, like to cover at some point. To my knowledge, I've not had any contact. I don't think I've had any contact with either of those families. I don't think that my assistant, Emily, who's in here, has had any contact with any of their families. But, I'll talk to anybody. We'll see what we can do. But, I know that even on Charlie Project, my friend Megan Goodsight, she's written that that they're looking into the idea that it was some kind of hit. Danielle and Richard, like I said, were a new couple. And I think that she had taken a break from Richard for a little while, maybe because of her ex-husband. And her ex-husband is talked about in the Disappeared episode. And I think the police have looked into him and everything. And I don't think it's possible, given the path that they would have taken back to their house, that somehow they got off the road and maybe went into the river or something like that. I don't think that happened either. If it were the case in Florida or maybe some other state where you have more lakes and ponds and things like that, maybe like Minnesota or something, that might be a possibility. Just riding off the road, maybe drinking and driving, frankly, or somebody, one of them has a heart attack while driving, goes into the water. That's very possible. I don't think that happened in this case. I'm inclined to believe that one of their exes had something to do with this. But I will say, given that she's missing, he's missing, and the vehicle is missing, I'm going to bet on the fact that more than one person was involved in this. This seems like a little too much for one person to do. Now, I will tell you, I got this question sent to me earlier today. I want you to know that I have a little experience on this topic, even as a guy. Back in high school, I was dating a girl from a different school district. It wasn't until after we kind of broke up, went our separate ways, that her ex-boyfriend, I found out, was following me around. That's a true story. I found that out afterwards. So it happens. Even to a guy, like me, who I think I'm very self-aware, because I was only like 17, 18 at the time. But so it happens. And we know all about stalking these days. I think stalking is something that's more known today than it's ever been in the history of the world. So I know about that. And I also know that when I lived in Las Vegas, I was dating a woman from LA. And she had talked to me about, she thought some guy was following her around. And then when I went down to see her one time, I got to see that in person as well, where there was obviously some guy who was a little infatuated with her, the woman I was dating at the time. So these things happen. Having said that, I'm going to stick to my idea that more than one person was involved. Now, the way you know, who knows what the detectives had done in this. I'm going to guess that they've looked into this as deeply as possible. I'm not here to second guess them or anything else, but if I were a detective, you know, I'd want to figure out who knew where Danielle and Richard were going that night. Who knew that they were going to this restaurant and who they were going to be around and all of that. That might be interesting to me. I'd also want to find out if those people knew, if of those people who knew that where they were going, how much ahead of time did they know that they were going to this restaurant? Did they just plan to go to the restaurant that day, or was it the day before or a week before? And this might help narrow down who might have known and how quickly some plan could have been hatched to make these two disappear. That's how I would probably go about it. I have no idea if the detectives have done that or not. I have no secret information any more than any of you do. Hello, Jill. What's going on? Good to see you tonight, Jill. Yes, Carla, it's creepy. It is creepy. Angie, what's going on? Pamela says, we had 2 girls go missing in 1971. They found them in the river about 3 years ago. I think I remember that story, Pamela. Angel says, the husband, I guess the ex-husband of Danielle, made sure he had plenty credible eyes on him, but we all know that means little if you hired someone to do the dirty work. Absolutely true, Angel. Michelle says, very creepy and scary. She had a stalker too. Yeah, I believe it. Yeah. Angel says it was a last-minute invite by Richard to Danielle. Okay, Angel is saying that. Well, that would certainly narrow down the amount of people who knew where they were going. Unless, you know, once again, somebody was stalking Danielle and had been stalking for a while and then saw her with this guy and got upset. But I don't think that we can rule out the opposite angle. You know, Richard, you know, was he married before? Once again, I didn't have a chance to look in this really deeply. But if he has an ex-wife or ex-girlfriend who is jealous, maybe they had a brother or something like that and made something happen. And I don't mean to be anti-New Jersey, but, you know, when I hear about a couple going missing and their car going missing, I also can't rule out that there might be some sort of mob connection or something. I know that Richard's family was involved in a bakery or something. It seems like in this type of case, there will be a lot of choices, but really there's only a few choices. I think it's either somebody connected to Richard who did something to them or somebody who was connected to Danielle that did something to them. And I stick by the idea that more than one person would be involved, simply because, you know, if you're a guy and you're jealous of Danielle, you know, she's going to be with another guy. I think if you wanted to do something to her, you just do something to her while she's by herself, not with another guy who might, of course, defend her, overwhelm you, make you look silly, and maybe the stalker is the guy who ends up getting his butt kicked. So I do think it's foul play, and it seems like the police are leaning in that direction. It's just interesting to me that it's public that they think that it was some sort of hit, but they haven't released any information other than that. It seems to me that, you know, once it gets out that that could be something, then it would be fairly easy to figure out the connections to all of it. If you're going to make that public statement, then you should already have in mind who instigated it, how the communication was made, and then who actually made these people disappear. So I don't know why that would be public information, but it seems that no, there have been no arrests in this case. Hard to say. Laura, I did say, yes, the truck was never seen again. I think it was a Dodge Dakota. Bakeries, Cherie says, bakeries are always good for laundering money. Is that right, Cherie? I didn't know that. Okay. Mike, what's going on tonight? Good to see you, Mike. I haven't talked to you in a while. Good to see you. Carla says, on Tracy Winslow, they think the father of her children had something to do with it and he won't say they found her car on fire and he's in prison and other charges. I'm not familiar with that case, Carla, unfortunately. So that's my answer to the Danielle Imbo and Richard Petrone case. Here's what I'm sure of. I'm sure there are many more details of this case that we don't know about, that I think that if one of their family members were on the program, that we probably could cover a lot more area and we'd probably get a lot more facts out there than Disappeared did. So I would certainly love the chance to talk to anyone in either of their families. So there you go. I posted this in the group and I'm going to talk about this. I have to admit, if you'll remember last year, I did an episode on the disappearance of Flight 370, kind of out of character maybe for Unfound. And to be honest, it was not that popular an episode at the time. Now, I will tell you, since then, it's been downloaded many, 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 many times. Likewise, when I put the video, when I put the show on, the episode on YouTube, it's gotten an incredible amount, at least for Unfound's world, a lot of views on YouTube. And my interview was Jeff Wise. Well, there was some information that came out today that seems to start leaning in Jeff Wise's direction. He, of course, believes that the plane was hijacked and did not end up in the southern Indian Ocean. It ended up being flown actually in the opposite direction. And I'm not going to go into all of the intricacies of that. If you don't know that episode, please go listen to it. And in addition, get Jeff's book. I got the audio book. It's fantastic. Well, now the French government that is involved because it was an Airbus is now seemingly starting to lean in Jeff's direction. They ignored it since the disappearance happened, and now it seems they are leaning in Jeff's direction. And of course, at his blog, jeffwise.net today, he wrote about that. So I just wanted to mention that the Flight 370 is back in the news. It seems that people are slowly coming around to Jeff's point of view, my guess on the episode, and you heard it on Unfound first over a year ago. I love to be on the cutting edge of stuff like that. So if you haven't seen that, look up Flight 370. There's a lot of news on it the last couple days, and it goes right in line with what Jeff and I talked about back in July of 2017. Michelle, what about the plane that just went down? I think that was some sort of mechanical failure, Michelle. It's not lost. They know exactly where it is. I think that you're going to find out that something electrically went wrong, and it's probably a crash, very much like that Air France flight that crashed in the Atlantic, flying from Brazil to France, flight, I think, 447. I think you're going to find that that crash, that Air France crash, and this crash are very, very similar, I think. Jessica Walker, what case is this? This is I did an episode last year, the disappearance of Flight 370, Jessica. That's okay. Don't worry about it if you missed it. You can find it on Podomatic or iTunes. It's a really good episode. Like I said, though, at the time, it was not that popular. But since then, it seems like people finally found it or something. And now it's been very, very, very popular. So there you go. So I want to give a shout out to Jeff Wise. I think in the end, he's going to be right. And I think that it's going to be probably one of the biggest aviation scandals or conspiracies exposed in the history of aviation. I do believe that, although I'm not going to say it's going to be solved this year. Another thing I want to talk about, this is something that I posted in the group, is these two young women, well, one's a young woman and other's a girl, 22 and 16 years old, who were found duct taped together. I think it was in the Hudson River like a week and a half ago, something like that. For a while, their identities weren't known, but then they finally somehow they figured out that these two girls were from Fairfax, Virginia. But remember, from Fairfax, Virginia, found in the water on the shore of the river, the Hudson River, I think, in New York City. Of course, they were deceased. They were duct taped. Their hands, I think, and feet were duct taped together. There were no signs of trauma. Their names, they figured out, were Tala, T-A-L-A, and Rotana, R-O-T-A-N-A, Faria, F-A-R-E-A. They are from Saudi Arabia. They were not, I was thinking they were African American. They were not, or Hispanic. They weren't. They're actually from Saudi Arabia. And they came here to the United States because their brother has a job in Washington, D.C. That's why they're here. And that's why they lived in the Fairfax, Virginia area. Now, what's interesting about this is that the day before they went missing in August, and they weren't discovered until October. So they were missing for 2 months. The day before they disappeared, the family had gotten a notice to leave the United States because the daughters, these two daughters, had applied for political asylum. And I guess the Saudi government or whoever, somebody involved in the embassy or something like that, didn't like that these girls were filing for political asylum. Now, I don't know what to make all of that, but yes, it is sad. And Michelle's talking about Flight 370. Sarah says, I was wondering about that one. I guess what I'm talking about now. Kelly says, really? I didn't hear that. Yep. All I'm saying is it has been in the news. I kind of tried to educate myself, kind of crammed regarding this topic, Kelly. But yes, Fairfax, they're from Fairfax, Virginia. And the day before, the family had gotten a notice to leave the United States because the daughters had gone, I don't even know how you do that or where you go, but they had applied for political asylum in the United States. Now, not here to get into politics. You know, we don't do politics on Unfound, but of course, the first thing I think of is this Khashoggi guy who was a reporter for the Washington Post, who was not an American citizen, but he had a green card to work here. And if you don't know, if you follow politics even a little bit, he was in Turkey. He was going to marry a Turkish woman. He went to the Saudi embassy in Turkey to get some paperwork where he never came back out. Well, we now find out that this guy's last name is Khashoggi, was pretty much murdered in the Saudi consulate in Turkey. And most likely this was ordered by the soon-to-be king of Saudi Arabia. And the reason it was is because this writer Khashoggi had been writing a lot of things about the Saudis and how they need to open up their society and need to be respect rights more, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The new soon-to-be king didn't like this, and essentially a hit was put out on him, and they did it in Turkey. So I'm wondering, could these things be related? This writer getting murdered in Turkey because of his political beliefs, and then these two young women having applied for political asylum, and then they end up dead too. I can't help but see the connection there. I just don't know. Pamela's saying, is it possibly an honor killing? That does happen. I've thought about that. Sarah is saying that maybe she, thinks the same way I do. Maybe you're agreeing with Pamela. Either is possible. Kelly is saying, trying hard not to comment politically, Ed. Yes, please don't. Kelly, please don't. We are merely looking at this from a mystery point of view. And Cherie says, wow. And Carrie says, I'm not going to read that because it's political, Carrie. Sorry. I'm just not going to get into that. But I can't help but see the connection here. It's interesting that these two girls applied for political asylum. Maybe they knew that it could be something as simple. They were having such a great time in the United States and they were due to go back to Saudi Arabia and they were trying to find a way to stay here. And so they did that and that got them in trouble. Very possible. Now, how they made it from Fairfax to and all that, I don't think anybody knows at this point. I don't know how that plays into what happened. I don't know. I haven't ruled out the idea that it was a suicide of some type. That they taped themselves together, we're going to die together, and they jump in the water and drown, and I guess that's possible. It's just an interesting story, and like I said, I can't ignore this other story. Of course, Khashoggi, he was murdered, I think, about a month ago. So these girls would have disappeared before he was murdered. So you can factor that into it. I just don't know. I think eventually they're going to figure this one out. I don't know how long it's going to be a mystery. It seems to me they'll be able to figure out how they made it to New York City and everything. And but it could be, as Pamela said, it could be an honor killing, because they disgrace their families, and that's what they do in that culture. Sarah, they were sisters. That's right. One was, I think, 22, and the other one was 16. That's all right, Carrie. Don't worry about it. It's just I just don't want to go there. Laura says, I think that I read that the two sisters had been reported missing a couple of times before this. Laura, I think you're right. I think that they were reported missing a couple times before this. That's a good point. I think I did read in that. I didn't write in my notes. I think you're right. And it was a really fishy story from the get-go. Yes. And the thing is, I remember when they disappeared and people looking for them and everything, and I just never caught on that they weren't American citizens. I actually thought they were either African-American or Hispanic citizens of the United States. I didn't realize that they were from another country. I would have never suspected that. Sharia is saying she doesn't think suicide. Okay. Pamela says the duct tape should contain evidence. That's a possibility. Just have to wonder how long they were in the water, if it would have washed anything away. I don't know. So there's that story that I wanted to cover as well, and I think a lot of you are familiar with it. Let me see if I have. Oh, I know. I need to answer some questions. We're going to get a little off topic, so I've covered that. I want to do one more news story before we get into the disappearance for this week. Jill, and then on top of that, Jeremiah had asked me, I think many of you know that I play disc golf, sometimes well, sometimes really badly, but it's good exercise for me. It allows me to get out of the house, which I don't do a lot of. Jill asked me what my favorite disc golf course is, and I know Jill tunes in every week, so I feel obligated to answer this question. My favorite course or courses actually were the ones that the Daytona Beach Disc Golf Club set up in the years, let me think about this, 13, 14, 15, and 16. I drove over there for those years to play in their tournament, and during those years, they set up temporary courses on ball golf courses. So you're like going into these gated communities. There's beautiful water and the palm trees and everything else. And these guys who set it up, they were very challenging courses, very picturesque, long distances. And the way you play disc golf on ball golf courses are you play the bunkers and the greens are out of bounds. So it can get very challenging. So those were probably the best courses. And the way it was we played 2 years at one country club, and then we played 1 year, like it was Pelican Bay 2 years, and you can look this up on a map. Pelican Bay 2 years, and then the Daytona Beach Country Club 1 year, and then they went back to Pelican Bay the next year. All fantastic courses. What a great experience. Because disc golf is usually played in public parks. So we don't get to play in any fancy areas too often. So when you do, and there's like big houses with big pools and you're going into this gated community play, it's really cool. So that's what I would say were my favorite courses, my favorite experiences on courses. Now, as far as actual real disc golf courses, like what you'd play, and if you don't know what disc golf is, just go to YouTube and do a search for it. You'll find out very quickly. If you have any children, it's a great sport to get into. It's not as well known as ball golf. Great sport, okay? And it's a lot cheaper to play than ball golf. So there's a bonus for you parents. So my favorite real, regular disc golf course, probably, let me think about this. It wouldn't be any of the ones here in Pinellas County, really. Probably Moraine State Park in Pennsylvania, up near my parents' house. And they used that course for the World Championships, like in 2015. It's a really cool course in Moraine State Park. It's long. It has a lot of elevations and water and stuff. That's probably my best favorite permanent disc golf course. And I'm going to answer this for Jeremiah because it's not going to mean anything to anybody else, but I'm going to answer it, and all of you are going to go, what's he talking about? My favorite disc would be a slightly used Innova TL, Jeremiah. Maybe a little more than slightly beat in, a lot beat in, and 175 grams. Probably is my favorite disc out there. After that, it would probably be a star TL's first, then like a star sidewinder around 170 grams would be second. So there you go, Jeremiah. That's not going to mean anything to anybody else, but you got your question answered. But once again, disc golf, great sport. And, you know, I can't say enough about, even though I've been having my problems. Carrie says about these two sisters, wasn't only the younger one reported missing to start with, not older one? I don't remember, Carrie. Pamela, between the layers, you can't wear gloves when using it. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Pamela. Okay. Cherie asked me, what do I think about the Jamie Kloss underwear robber? Thoughts? Cherie, I have to admit that I haven't read. I saw it. I haven't really gone deep into it. I don't know. I really don't think that he has anything to do with this, with her disappearance. I don't. That's really all I have to say to some weirdo out there. Just somebody obsessed on the case and finds out where the house is. Laura asked, what could have possibly happened in Jamie Kloss's case? I'm going to say what I did last week. I think that somebody who knew her broke into the house, killed the parents, and took her. I think it was somebody that definitely knew the family. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Kelly says Moraine State Park, beautiful area. Kelly lives up there. Yep. It is, Kelly. Thank you. Ann says, do many women play? Yes, there are women's clubs. Yes. There are tournaments for women exclusively, and then they have tournaments where they're both men and women. And they're clubs that people get together like on some evening or on a Sunday morning where men and women play together. We play doubles. In fact, when I played in a doubles league earlier this year, my doubles partner the entire season was a woman. She's a great player. Her name's Alicia. Great, nice, really good player. And it was really my pleasure to be her partner because she definitely pulled us along. So yes, women do play, and there's professional. I mean, there are women professionals who do it for a living. And yes. Laura says disc golf is pretty popular here in Michigan. Laura, you should know. Although you'd think that it would be like a fair weather state that would be the most popular for disc golf, Michigan is the #1 state for disc golf in the United States. Even though you get snow and everything, people play in the summer, play in the winter up there. I'm telling you, they go out and play in the snow. They do. Michigan, #1 state for disc golf. Not Florida, not California, not Texas, not North Carolina or anything. Michigan, #1 state for the duct tape. Yeah, they could have used gloves or something. Sure, Pamela, sure. Regarding the taping those women up. Shannon, you're getting to the show a little late, but that's fine. You can watch the replay later if you'd like. Shannon, thanks for tuning in. Carrie says, I think the underwear robber is just a creepy fanboy. That's kind of my opinion. And Ann, you're welcome. And Renee, good to see you. I don't recognize your name, Renee. Are you new to the live show? Just wondering if you are. Welcome. And Shannon, I think this feels the same way about you. I don't know if you've been, but if you're first time here, thank you. Sarah says, I hate to say it, but I've never seen disc golf played. I do know we have them in our local park there. Sarah, just go to YouTube, do a search for disc golf. There's entire tournaments on there that you're watched to see what it's like. Oh, yeah, Laura, they play in the winter. Oh, yeah, disc golfers in Michigan play in winter. Now, you'd never catch me playing in winter. Like, I'd never go to Michigan to play in the winter. I'm a fair weather guy, but yes, that's true. They play in the winter. All right, let's go to this week's case. Things are chugging right along here. Oh, I have one more news item real quickly. Emanuela Orlandi, she disappeared in the Vatican City on June 22nd, 1983. Within the last few days, some bone fragments were found at the Vatican Embassy in Italy. And they are being tested to figure out if this is Emanuela or not. I don't know how many of you saw this story, but we're going back. We're even going to another country. She was going to a music class, or she went to the music class, and she was late. And then somebody saw her get picked up by somebody in a dark blue BMW. And this, once again, going back to 1983. What's interesting about this is before the music class, she was late. And when she got to she said that somebody had stopped her in the street and talked to her about working for the cosmetic company Avon. And then she said that she was going to be having another meeting with this person. And there are all sorts of rumors about who that person could have been. There's rumors that the mafia was involved. There's rumors that somebody in the Vatican was involved in her disappearance. There's rumor that it was headed by these Bulgarians who tried to assassinate John Paul II just a couple years before that. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this disappearance. I personally have heard about this disappearance before, so it was interesting when I saw some things in the news. You can look it up. Emanuela Orlandi, Orlandi. So there's all sorts of theories. She was never seen again. But the Avon thing sticks out to me. It would lead me to believe that an American has something to do with this, because Avon, to me, I know it's all over the world technically, but in 1983, would people they might have thought about it, but would somebody who was going to kidnap a woman or do something actually use, if they're Italian, I should say, if they're Italian or Bulgarian or somewhere in Europe, would they really use the Avon cosmetic company as a cover? I don't think so. I don't think so. That seems weird to me. I mean, if you're an Italian and you see she was only like 15 and you're going to try to charm her or something, wouldn't you say, well, she looks like a model and she should get in with some Italian modeling agency instead of picking the American Avon cosmetic company? That sticks out to me as something that's very strange. And it leads me to believe that who is responsible for this is an American that was living in Italy. And you should know that the reason that's important is because Emanuela's father worked for the Vatican Bank. Well, the guy who headed up the Vatican Bank maybe a year before that was an American, and he got kicked out for doing some funny things. And that sticks in my mind, and I just wonder if this guy wanted to get some revenge by kidnapping the daughter of, somebody else who came into the bank to take the job. That is something that goes through my mind, and it's all because of this person trying to, talk to her and say that she should work for the Avon cosmetic company instead of an Italian company. That sticks out. She was definitely Lord Shuri, definitely. Carrie says, I would definitely think that as well. Would Avon be real popular in Vatican City? Maybe it is now. Maybe in 2018, the whole world, because the internet, knows about Avon. How many people outside the United States knew about Avon in 1983? I don't know. It just seems like, if you're some foreigner and you're going to try to kidnap some girl, picking the Avon company seems really, really unique, really random. So there's that. So I wanted to talk about that. That's in the news. You can look that up. Emanuela Orlandi disappeared from Vatican City, June 22nd, 1983. The reason I'm talking about it is some bone fragments were found on the property of the Vatican Embassy, not in Vatican City, but the Vatican Embassy in Rome, Italy, while they were doing some excavating, or they were redoing the embassy, building around there, tearing some stuff up, and they found these bones. So they could go back to ancient times. I don't know. Tracy says, I don't think Avon would be very popular there at that time. Tracy, I'm inclined to believe that as well. And Carrie says, what's the best way to hurt a guy? Do something to his little girl. Yes. And what's also, once again, if you're going to look into this, you're going to find that about 40 days before this, another girl disappeared kind of under the same circumstances. So you can look at those cases and see if you think they're related. All up to you. But if I have a chance to talk about some foreign disappearance case, I'm going to take it. All right, now let's talk about this week's case. This is the disappearance of Peggy McGuire. She was a woman in her 20s. She was the mother of a 9-year-old whose name is Ethan. She disappeared from Eufaula, Oklahoma on November 16th, 2015. So it's a case that's not even 3 years old. I had the pleasure of interviewing her mother, Betty Davis, today. This morning, I did the interview. And I need to thank a listener, Michelle, who lined it all up. Michelle contacted me, asked me if I'd be interested in talking to Betty about Peggy. I said, absolutely. And I'm very happy to get to know Betty and then talk to her and interview her this morning. This is not a case where we're going to be fumbling around on theories or suspects. This is the kind of opposite of the Lacey Buenfil case. In this episode, you're going to hear about how there is only one suspect. And there is almost zero belief that Peggy ran off on her own. You're going to hear about a guy whose last name just happens to also be the name of the county where this disappeared. And the county is named after this guy's family, this guy who is the number one suspect. And he is the father of Peggy's son. And there's the belief that maybe not all has been done that it should have been done because of his name and because of the family that he is a part of. And this county has been named this since basically Oklahoma became a state. So it's his distant ancestors that got the county named after him, and so he's a descendant of all of these people. And so the episode is called What's in a Name? And you're going to be asked, first of all, I think, you're going to listen to the facts about the case and what she did that day and the problem that she was having with this guy and her movements that day and what she was telling people. You're going to hear about how her truck disappeared and then it was found at a dive bar, and there's a figure who was on videotape walking away from the truck. You're going to hear about blood evidence that might not have ever been checked out for DNA, see whose blood it was. You're going to hear about how Peggy's house was cleaned from top to bottom, even her clothes, shortly after she disappeared by the family of the guy who is the suspect. You're going to hear about what neighbors saw and heard on the day that Peggy disappeared. And you're going to wonder why more hasn't been done in this case. And once again, it's the disappearance of Peggy McGuire from Eufaula, Oklahoma on November 16th, 2015. The guest is her mother, Betty Davis. Now, the good news is that for Betty, I'm trying to work some of my connections behind the scenes to try to get some outside help for her outside of that county, even outside the state of Oklahoma. I hope to be successful doing that because I think that some outside eyes need looked at this case. You should know that the OSBI, Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, is involved. They've gotten involved, but still, this is a case where you would have thought some charges could have been brought by now, and they haven't been. So I've, you know, as all of you know, I have some contacts that I can go to in cases like this, and I'm going to try to get one of them involved in this particular case. This is a case that, you know, kind of as obvious as it gets, but still it's unsolved. Nobody's in jail. Her body hasn't been found. Lots of rumors going around, things that seemingly weren't done. The local police didn't take it seriously, and it could be they didn't take it seriously because of the people, the person, at least one of the persons involved. And then OSBI comes in after the fact, maybe a little too late. So the interview is a tough one. It was a tough one. So Cherie says, these cases infuriate me, so clear but no action. Carrie says that has happened before. Connections get dismissed, sadly. Michelle, who is watching tonight, she's thanking me for doing this. Michelle, you're welcome. Michelle says, is even going far to say a cover-up. Once again, I let the listeners decide. All we do is put the facts out there about what people heard, what people saw, what Betty heard, what she saw, and I let the listeners come to their own conclusions. And sometimes listeners can come up with some ways that families can move forward, things they can do, and that's what I'm hoping in this case. And Tracy says, I hope you're able to get her some help. I hope so too. So that is the case. I hope that you will look it up. I even posted the guy's picture. You'll notice I haven't even used his name yet, but I posted the guy's picture in the discussion group. I'm going to put it on the Unfound page so everybody can see him. So you can kind of get that in your mind as you're listening to the episode. I don't have anything else for tonight for all of you, whatever. I want to also, once again, wish you all a happy Halloween. I hope you got a lot of candy. I hope your kids got a lot of candy, but I hope they learn to not eat it all in one night. Tell them to space it out a little bit. Remember to turn your clocks back this weekend. The poll for the Lacey Wenfield case was that people decided that, yes, Terry did do something to her out in the Cal Forest, although the poll was very, very close. We talked about the shirts. We talked about Patreon. Talked about PayPal. We talked about the playing cards. We talked about the books, the ebooks, the hardback books, not selling a lot of those. But I would tell anybody, if you want a hardback book, email me personally. I'll sign it for you. I can send some of the ones, and I've sold quite a few that way. And I've given some away as well. Would love to sell you one that way, get my signature in it with a little bit of a message. Please contact me personally. But the ebooks on Amazon are doing fine. They're doing great, and I appreciate that. News, we talked about Flight 370 and my friend Jeff Wise, who I think is going to end up being right. We talked about the duct tape girls from Fairfax, Virginia, who were found in New York City. We talked about Emmanuel Orlandi, her disappearing in Italy. I talked about the Danielle Imbo and Richard Patrone disappearance. I talked about my most memorable Halloween, where my girlfriend and I dressed up. I'm not going to say it again, but we dressed up as a couple. I talked about disc golf, which I always love to do. And then finally, I talked about my favorite candy. And then finally, I talked about the disappearance of Peggy McGuire. That'll be the case. 2 p.m. Eastern on Friday. I thank you all. I mean, this year for Unfound has been so good. You should know, listenership up this year has been up about 40%. And it's all thanks to you. I cannot thank you all enough. And this is, as you know, is my favorite time of the week where I get to interact with all of you. If you tuned in late, it'll be on YouTube and Facebook later. See ya, everybody. And let's get November started off the right way. Good night.